Good afternoon. Welcome to day 4 of my 7-week writing challenge. I have to admit, this morning's been quite emotional. I do a meditation every morning before I start, and this morning I was taken from my usual place I go to. I was really raised up high, and my throat was really constricted, and this is something that I get quite a lot. And actually, at the beginning of my healing journey, I also got lots of restriction in my throat. I was finding it sometimes really difficult to swallow, like I really couldn't swallow. And I've had it on and off over the years, and it's when I go to speak out and something just restricts me and stops me. And this isn't going to happen anymore. This was truly like a healing of that throat chakra, that not speaking out. Yeah, it is time now to do this, and I can't back out. It was interesting also today that I was prompted to ask myself and Christian, did we actually expect Christian to disappear? Was this like the destined way this was going to happen? When I look at it now, of course he was destined to disappear, and those people who let's just say there were a number of people who not only tried to warn Christian about his solo African trip, he always shrugged off those concerns, and there was a reason why he did that. We also had, as a family, several people have premonitions about Christian disappearing. And in one case, it was definitely going to be in Africa that he would disappear. So I think, this was all before Christian actually left for Africa. And, we all felt like an impending doom. And the thing was, we couldn't stop him. And he couldn't stop himself from going either. There were several things that had already happened. Christian was a traveller, he was an explorer, he'd been doing it for quite a few years. He'd always travelled on his own. He'd travel with friends as well, but lately he'd been travelling on his own. And he was always searching for something. I did films with him, which you can see on my website, where he explains his need to always be travelling and searching. So before Christian went, I wrote him an email, and that was even just being reminded of it, it caused the most pain, because he didn't download that email before he left. Obviously he knows now what was in the email, but at the time when I realised that he hadn't actually downloaded that email, which were things that I should have said to his face, but didn't at that time, which I've now been able to say, and it's all been acknowledged and all of that. So that not being able to give him those final words, my final thoughts about him and his journey, really, really hurt. and I can understand now, people who come to me for healing, I can put myself straight back into the feelings of not having said what you wanted to say, that it was too late. I would now say it's not too late for those words to be said and to be felt and to be reciprocated. But at the time, for me, that was like horrendous. So we had all these premonitions. I had I'll write about it all in the book, but there were people who suddenly came into my life and told me that Christian, we'd think he would be in trouble, but actually don't worry about him, he's actually okay. And this was all before he even left. Spirit was building up the whole time to telling me and reassuring me that in the end I would find him, or it would be all okay. But and that was all before he even left. So Christian, now he'll say he couldn't actually stop this trip to Africa. It was like a calling he had, and me writing about this, our story in this book now is my calling as well. I've heard it for a long time now, and as I've sort of said in previous films, I've ignored it. But it's insistent, and I know, everybody has a calling. If you all sit there in stillness and you really listen and you really show up, you will hear a calling. It might be to heal a grief, it might be to use your voice, it might be to travel, it might be there to... it could be anything, but rest assured it'll be something that you've heard very often, and the calling kind of starts off small as a little voice, as a little idea, as a little something that comes into your head, and it just gets louder and louder and clearer, and actually the ideas that come into your head, things start working in the physical world to actually allow that to happen, to make it happen. And you just kind of follow the path. And a lot of the time you make excuses not to follow your calling. And you very often, like I did, go off in the wrong direction. So you see something sparkly, something extra, more interesting or easier to do, and off you go and you follow it and you do it. But actually, once you've done all that, you still have to, that calling is still there. It's still a niggle. We all have the niggle. My niggle for the last few years, my niggle initially was to find Christian. I denied my grief, and I hid away from my grief, and I hid away from everything. And then I started to get the calling to go and find Christian. I didn't know how that was going to happen. I just knew I had to do it, and it got louder and louder. So, the calling comes in your dreams, and then it starts to come into your head when you're awake as well. And things start to happen, and people start to appear in your life that could make that calling happen, to pull you further along that path. And Christian, we've just written this morning, he's just said, we all knew this would end with my vanishing. It was part of our lives. We all knew it would happen. We expected it. And then he just talks about all these warnings that everybody got. And he, there were many things before he left that actually made his departure to Africa a bit earlier than he'd planned. Certain things happened, so he actually had a hurried departure. he brought the brought everything forward. He's just said, I felt the call to move, and you feel that, and I feel that all the time now. You can't ignore that call. It becomes insistent. It comes in your dreams and in your waking thoughts. Those who have heard the call will know when you speak of it. That call that starts as an idea and grows, gets louder and more insistent. There's no stopping the physical catching up with the call. And the only thing you can do is leap, free and without hesitation. The call is destiny, and if you fight against it, which you will already have done many times, there is nothing you can do eventually but give in and trust. And then he talks about my throat, my flight this morning and my throat. There's no stopping this now. I've reached that tipping point. And I think probably lockdown, and why I'm doing this now, there's probably lots of people who are watching who might also be hearing a calling. And actually this lockdown and this time has made it even clearer. We've all had a bit more space and a bit more time after the initial panics and things. You kind of settle in a routine, and you will have been hearing callings. And I guess part of my 7-week challenge is to also encourage you to follow that calling, and if it involves healing a long-held grief, come along with me on this journey and see where it takes you. And then part of my writing this morning was actually being prompted to write a haiku, the Japanese poetry. I hope I've said that right. The lady I'm doing this course with, she is a Japanologist, as well as a writer. So she's written lots of books on Japanese culture, and so I wrote this morning this, which I don't know if it will mean anything to anybody, but it's kind of where I am now. So new words formed inside are finally hatched and flying free, weaving a spell of healing untold. So that's my little writing stint for this morning, and I guess I'd encourage you, if you have that calling, or if you feel something in your throat, something rising, something wanting to be spoken, you don't actually often have to use spoken words. You can write it out. And most of my healing has actually been done through the spoken word and the written word. And words inside, Christian and I we write together, so we have, it's called automatic writing. Well, that's what I call it. No, I don't even call that. I just call it writing with Christian. I've explained it several times, but I just kind of hear he's like his presence. I hear his voice and I just write down what I hear. And we can all do that. It takes practice, and then a lot of this 7-week writing challenge is actually about getting back into the groove of writing every day. You have to show up consistently, and whether that's creating in your art, in your singing, in your voice, in writing, in poetry, any sort of creative activity that allows you to kind of lose yourself. When you're in a creative mood, like people have called it, when the muse hits, suddenly you can flow and everything just flows beautifully and sounds true. And having a daily practice like I'm doing now allows that to happen. And this is a practice which I used to do all through my healing with Christian, when I was finding and we were reconnecting and I was daily meditating, daily practice, so I've got back to that, and it's really a magical place to be. So yeah, if you're hearing a call, answer that call. You know, now's the time to do that. It really does feel like a joyous moment not to be missed. And even if that is healing a long-term grief, you know, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint, but oh my goodness, it is a joyous journey. Once you get a connection and you get to speak, and you know it's reciprocated, it's really, really a joyous and freeing, you know, totally freeing experience. So there's quite a lot in that today, but yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. So lots of love and have a good day. Bye.